nightmares creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire.
Men, women, Klingons and Embers, welcome to Burning Questions, where answers are the beginning of questions, not the end. On today's episode, we have Starfleet Officer Murdock. Would you kindly tell us about yourself and a bit about your history, please?
Hi, I'm Murdock, or if you look me up on, you know what, never mind. Bleh. I'm, having a brain
It's
fart
fine.
already. This is not good. I have a really complicated history.
Mhm.
What I can divulge is, while I am from the future, I'm not even from as far as you would expect in the future. I'm actually from around the 2250s, which,
Okay,
I
yeah.
guess in terms of what you people on this reality might know as is the time when Star Trek, right around the early early time frame when jerks like Jim Kirk were prevalent,
Mhm.
or the Discovery. And then I got into this weird rivalry in the war with this Klingon woman. And for whatever reason, she got her hands on this crazy, I don't know how to describe it simply, but basically it was like cosmological metaverse, multiverse spanning mushroom network,
Sure.
and made a weapon out of it. And after a bunch of things, we lost Starbase 1 out of the deal, and we got catapulted into the future, further into the future, after she decided to fire it on me.
Okay.
So I'm actually from 2411 now.
2411. Okay, so you went, let's say, roughly...
I went another about 150 years forward in
Yeah.
time.
Okay, I see.
So I've been put to work by, you name it. Starfleet still likes to use me. The time guys from the 29th century seem to like to use me. I get hit up by this guy Daniels every once in a while.
Okay.
Section 31 likes to use me, and those guys are like, they're probably gonna come and do stuff to me now that I've mentioned them. They're like the CIA in this reality, except, you know, way more sci-fi.
Yeah, I heard they're pretty much like the SCP Foundation of your world.
Well, SCP, that doesn't exist in my universe, but
Okay, sounds about right. Yeah.
but I've heard of them too, and yes, they are very similar to Section 31.
Okay, well, I see. Yeah, being a yeah, you've practically been everywhere, right?
If I want to quote another franchise, some might think I do crazy stuff like I'm Doctor Who or
Nice. Okay.
Rick and Morty, just about. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm halfway to being Rick, right? I've got the hair.
Yeah, close enough.
But yeah, so Section 31, usually when they're tapping me, it's, you know, off the books, standard, you don't get to talk about this with anyone nonsense.
Black Ops
Usually
kind
a
of
lot
thing.
of feelings are, it's usually wet work, honestly.
Ah.
Yeah, because I'm really good at violence, it seems.
Can we get on the shirt? I'm really good at violence.
Yeah, that tends to be why the Admiralty likes to use me in the wars against the Klingons. At least the ones that I've fought. I think we're at peace with them now in the time period I'm supposed to be living in. Took
Okay.
long enough.
I see.
But that's because there's been bigger threats.
There's been what? Sorry. Oh, bigger threats.
threat.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of
No,
threats we talking about here?
We're talking about the Borg for a while.
Ah. Okay, okay.
Right now, the biggest threat that's been going out of control has been the mirror universe of all things. So, it's basically, you know, like alternate reality, kind of like how things are here, except instead of what you've experienced with humans being quirky and just, you know, actually having personalities and kind of being dumb and what have you. All humans are basically evil in that one. And my counterpart my Mirror Universe counterpart, had a very direct hand in the subjugation of a lot of other cultures and species. It's, yeah. He and I, we really don't get along.
Okay, I see. Well, I suppose considering that it's your counterpart, you really wouldn't get along. Wait, wait. Your counterpart, does that mean that your counterpart is very peaceful then?
No, he's, like I said, direct hand in subjugation and conquering of other species and cultures. No, whereas I actually, you know, I might be an attack dog, but I'm on a leash, right?
Okay.
There is no leash, and he is completely unrestrained. And yeah, the last time we scrapped, he had the nerve to tell me that multiverse wasn't big enough for the both of us, which I more or less told him the same thing at the same time. So that was rather funny. Yeah, that actually was a tough fight.
Yeah,
Then he had to be a coward. Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, it just sounds like it. Like it would be a tough fight, literally fighting yourself.
Yeah, and then he had the nerve to teleport out when he was about to lose, the coward. Deal with him later.
I've seen a bunch of people like that in video games. When they're like about to lose, they just leave immediately afterwards. Right before they lose. They're a pain.
Yeah, that seems to be a trope, especially in your version of my reality, since I'm pretty sure a lot of cases it's serialized TV shows.
Yeah.
And some video game too, which is really weird.
I did not know about this. I will look it up later. But yeah, I definitely see, like, I've seen like the trope of this baddie is too important to be defeated right now, so we're gonna let him escape and then deal with him again in another adventure.
Yeah. Part of that, though, I think has to do in the case of Mirror Universe Me is that his boss, the Emperor. Oh yeah. So, well, I know what you call Terra as Earth.
Sure.
in our solar system, Sol. They actually call it Terra in the Mirror Universe. And we refer to them as Terrans because it is the Terran Empire.
Okay.
And their current emperor seems to be an egomaniac. And he's pulling some kind of weird twisted plot from, like, again, movies that came out a long time ago in this timeline. With, like, weird stuff that should have just been left alone. Especially since Gene Roddenberry kind of implied that Beeger was Borg. So I'm sitting here confused.
Okay, so it's kind of like ancient technology
kind
of thing?
It's really weird technology.
Okay, I see.
Don't mind me and my imaginary coffee
Mug.
cup.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I see like what kind of technology you're talking about, because doing these shows I've discovered the weirdest things. Not that long ago, we had somebody named Nikki Astrophil, and her entire planet used a type of slime-based technology, and just like hearing about how it works really intrigued me, because where I'm from, our tech is energy-based. Hers was slime-based, and that was just rather interesting. So I suppose it is true what like some people say, like what somebody from your universe, who I think is from your universe, said, is that everything is impossible until it's not.
That sounds familiar. Yeah. I could see that, because most of our technology, at least in the Federation, yeah, it's based on energy, and we managed to see my great, I want to say it was either my great or my great grandfather fought in World War III. Because, oh yeah, my universe right about now,
yeah,
is about when World War III actually started, which is kind of scary if you think about it.
Yep.
So died after World War III, and a bunch of weird stuff that Picard won't actively discuss when you go to ask him about it. You have to really sweeten the deal and get him wind up first. The Enterprise, for whatever reason, ended up going back in time and making sure a bunch of things happened, so that humanity's first warp flight actually happened.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which is how First Contact Day is a big thing, big holiday in the Federation. April 4th, I want to say, or 5th. The Trekkies in the crowd will correct me, I'm sure. And made sure that all happened, and then the economics, everything changed. But most impressively, as far as technology goes, we're at a point where we've basically figured out how to convert energy into matter and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we've, like, to the point where, yeah, teleporters are one aspect, but then we came up with the holodeck, which is my favorite little distraction, which, if you end up going to my channel, all those Let's Plays, I'm in the holodeck.
Yeah.
I get to play dress up. I get to go and get my butt kicked by whatever. Some of it is a little bit more painful than others, but, you know, whatever. But the other cool thing is somebody who had a bright idea came up with this cool device called the replicator, which, to other cultures who are not sufficiently advanced technologically, it looks like magic. Because I could say, computer, Earl Grey tea, hot. And all of a sudden you hear sci-fi noises, and in the replicator, which looks like, you know, some silly food dispenser thing, just energy, and next thing you know, hey, a teacup, and it's full of Earl Grey tea, and it's 88 degrees Celsius. Perfect.
I could definitely see that, because there has been a lot of, well, currently, at least on the Terra that I know of, there is already some like 3D printers wherein it uses a composite to create, it uses plastic to create something. So definitely at the point where somebody can create energy from matter and vice versa, that would be possible. And of course, I'm assuming that you guys already solved the energy crisis, right?
Yeah, because, well, we're dealing with a different kind of energy crisis in my reality,
Ah,
because we figured out how to harness the power of matter and antimatter reactions, right? Um, which gives off a lot of energy when the particles collide because they annihilate.
okay.
And I see you, Akari. Yes, I would download a pizza. Um, but where was I going? Yeah, so and for whatever reason, like I'm not an engineering officer. The engineering stuff is beyond me. Like I said, I'm here to kick butt and take names. That seems to be what I'm really good at.
Fair enough.
Using dilithium crystals, they use it as a catalyst, which somehow just makes the reaction that much more energetic. And then we harness that, and that is essentially what we use for our warp drive, which allows us to travel faster than light.
Okay, okay, I see.
Because we with our technology, we travel faster than light. It's how we can go across a good chunk of the galaxy in, relativistic time frames.
Yeah. Okay,
But sorry, go on.
I was saying that being able to use energy in such a way wherein, like what you said, using the using dark matter, was it?
No, it was matter and antimatter.
Antimatter, that's it. Yeah.
Dark matter is a venue we haven't totally explored yet in my timeline either.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I see. I've done. Well, I know you're not an engineer officer, but I have done some research on these kinds of things, and that was rather interesting in how, when they collide, they create essentially mini stars, and just being able to harness that energy would definitely help you guys in powering devices which are really energy what's the term I'm looking for? Energy vacuums,
Thirsty?
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the races that, well, they're very much divided right now in when I'm from, the Romulans, their vessels are powered by contained singularities.
That's
Figure
a
that
lot of
one out.
energy.
Yeah. So every one of their ships has a quantum singularity in it, and somehow with their inertia dampeners that they have set up, they have.
I think your mic died, sorry.
Oop.
Okay, there we go. Now
Still hear me?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it might be my noise gate. I might have to talk louder.
It's fine.
Oh well. But yeah, they're what was I gonna say? Yeah, so their power cores are essentially a quantum singularity that they have inertial dampeners basically containing this thing. And what inertial dampeners are is kind of exactly what they sound like. They're kind of like artificial gravity meets making sure you don't turn to paste as somebody flips the switch and you go faster than light. That's the whole point behind them.
Okay, I see. That okay, yeah. It's just finding a way to keep your particles where they should be, I'm assuming.
Well, right. You don't want to be a puddle at the back of the ship as soon as somebody flips the warp drive on, and you just go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, I think that's enough information about your world. We can get on with the first burning question now.
Oh, do tell.
Okay. So, not too long ago, I did an episode of Waifu's Weekly Mushroom Girls, which did inform me of certain fungal entities throughout the multiverse. That being said, can you describe the fungal entities that attacked you that you said that was being controlled by a Klingon that helped you
Okay.
transport across time?
Okay, so that was more of a a neutral plant type thing, right?
Sure.
Because I think the idea that people like to make it akin to is like the Norse Yggdrasil tree of life, right?
Sure.
It spans the universe. Except our fungal scientists have determined that it's actually a giant mycelial network.
Hmm. Okay.
The only race of people that I've encountered that are mushroomy of sorts are the Alachi. And they live in this pocket dimension. It's not even really a pocket dimension. It's almost like a space between spaces where this cosmic mycelial network resides.
Okay.
Now we're getting some really weird high concept stuff. Don't mind me.
It's fine.
And yeah, so and the Klingons, because of their crazy weapon, have managed to corrupt some of that, and it's yeah. If you've watched Star Trek Discovery, you guys might have an idea of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just processing this. So this is a dimensional mycelium essentially that exists out of the plane of your current of the neutral existence where humans and Klingons exist. This exists outside of that also connects between your time and the past. So it transpires.
it practically connects everything.
Yeah.
So, like, there's probably even parts of the network that go to your home dimension.
I see this
If
a
that makes
really
sense.
interesting concept. I see.
Yeah. So it doesn't just go where, it goes when, and it breaks about 3 different walls on top of that. It's wacky, which is why we should probably leave it alone. But, this guy named Paul Stamets, he had to figure it out. And fun thing about the Discovery, they actually found, probably from this pocket dimension, because I've been there once or twice too, they found this bear-sized tardigrade. And that's how the Discovery initially initially navigated using this mycelial network, was using this tardigrade by basically doing some rather inhumane things to clamp it in for navigation purposes. So, if you know anything about tardigrades, they're microscopic little critters, and they're basically invincible. Imagine one the size of a bear.
Okay, I can see why. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little bit scary.
That'd be terrifying.
I've been mauled by one. It wasn't fun.
So this is like some kind of like your universe's version of the Revenant movie.
Oh. Yeah, kind of.
Just being mauled by a water bear. Oh, that sounds awesome.
I'm so glad we have teleporter technology, because the jerk responsible for it at least bothered to teleport it back to its containment cell.
Well, it's a good thing you guys have that kind of technology. Yeah, it's great you guys have that kind of technology.
Yeah, of course, this was also about the same time when that Klingon rival I was mentioning had broken into their ship, boarded it, and stole the plans to make the weapon that zapped us 150 years into the future. So that was a fun ride.
115 years before or forward?
Forward.
Ah, okay, I see. What happened to that Klingon person that used that technology on you?
Well, oddly enough, I encountered her in that future too.
Ah.
And then things got awkward for a bit because at one point, the Klingon Empire, after we'd bothered to actually come to be at peace with them again, because
Org.
a bunch of other stuff had happened, so we were actually being allies again.
Okay.
There was a civil war that erupted in the Empire. And oddly enough, after some investigating with General Martok, of all people, he's a cool dude. Yeah, we found that this Klingon woman, this now matriarch of oh, this is gonna bug me. I knew the name of their house. Of House Mokai.
Sure.
So that was the Klingons that started the war that I originally got pretty famous in, and then things happened. They were actually in the right, and there was some cheap nonsense going on because one of her own people was playing every side.
Ah, okay.
So it was real cathartic when we put that guy down. Fun story about the Klingons. Their culture and ideology and theology even is kind of describe it as space Vikings.
Like, what do you mean by that?
Oh, hang on. There we go. The motion was picking up my mic as my left hand.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? Well, for one thing, Klingons of antiquity killed all their old gods because they weren't good enough. They weren't even useful. So they killed all their old gods.
Okay.
Which is totally metal. And much like Vikings believed that when a warrior died, their soul would dine in Valhalla until Ragnarok, the Klingons have a similar belief where they end up going to this place called Stovokor, which is essentially their version of Ragnarok, or not Ragnarok, sorry, Valhalla.
Okay.
But on the flip side, I forget where it was that the cowards went in Norse mythology. It was some form of hell.
Yeah.
In Klingon theology, it's Grethor. And that is a weird place, man.
Like,
and because of their beliefs, you'd probably like it. It's lots of fire.
Nope.
It's really hot.
I'm sick of fire. I'm sick of hot fire stuff. I want to go somewhere cold, man. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and yeah, so that was a weird experience. Ended up seeing a guy who'd apparently been dead for 30 years, so it was his soul there. Met the ferryman.
Oh, so you went there?
Ferryman. Yeah, that was probably the weirdest thing ever. I went there.
Okay, so you essentially just went to hell and back.
Yeah, just basically to figure out why this was all part of this whole shenanigans with this civil war, to figure out why things were happening the way they were. And yeah, Martok was about as unimpressed as I was. Which is saying something.
So it's just fire and brimstone type of thing, huh?
Fire, brimstone. The jerk who runs the place, Feklar, that's the name of their devil.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a pain in the butt. It's just ridiculous. And then they ended up cloning somebody else afterwards because their emperor, the great Kalos the Unforgettable, ended up dying in the last big war against the Iconians.
Okay.
So, and don't get me wrong, he was a cool dude, but they needed somebody different with more cunning and diplomacy. So they ended up resurrecting somebody else whose name I should remember, but I do not right now.
Fine.
And now she's Supreme Chancellor of the Empire. So
I suppose that really means that everything is connected. It would be interesting though to see a concept of that. When creatures die, of course it depends on different beliefs. When creatures die,
Right.
they don't go necessarily just stop existing, which is what a lot of people believe, which I also do believe in, is that when they die, their souls or their life force essentially gets transported to another universe, that universe being, depending on what they believe in, a type of Helheim, so perhaps Hell, Valhalla,
apparently.
Heaven, whatever. That would be an interesting concept to see explored in more media.
Absolutely. Because if it's a place you can visit, well then.
It's a place we can escape from or go to.
But either way, I don't know if you noticed, but humans and organized religion, there's a complicated relationship
Yeah.
there. So we tend to leave it be.
Fair enough. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. You didn't really touch up on what your personal life was regarding the Klingon woman. So I wanted to ask something regarding that, which is, in most cultures, the practice of a dowry being paid by either party, would it be the wife to the husband's family or the husband's family to the wife's family, it changes depending on what culture. But
Okay.
was there that kind of thing that you had to do when marrying your Klingon wife, or they had to do?
So no, because they are very much a culture of warriors, right?
Sure.
Funny story. We met at a bar because that's usually how that goes. And I may have had a few too many to drink. She probably had one or two too many to drink. Because I've dealt with Klingons far too long, especially as adversaries. So it got to a point where like I know how they think. So she ended up saying something completely derogatory, basically calling me a milk drinking patak. I don't know if I said something instigated by accident or what.
Sure.
So I ended up getting into a drunken head bashing contest with her. And well, I know I didn't win, but somehow I was a worthy adversary because I went more rounds than most of the other Klingon dudes there could have hoped to have managed. So
Nice.
liquid strength, I guess.
It numbs the
Yeah,
pain, so I'm assuming that helped.
Yeah, and then for a while I had her ridges just imprinted on
your
my forehead. That
yeah.
was really weird. Ugh. Yeah, and then next thing I know, I had a stalker for a little while.
So essentially, she was just impressed by your ability to survive that.
Hey man, when it comes to Klingons, especially when it's shows of strength and prowess, game respects game.
Fair enough.
They're despite having been my enemy for so long, they are a hardy and simple people when they want to be.
Okay, that sounds nice. Kind of weird that you ended up getting a stalker for a while. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, see, I must have been on Deep Space Nine when that happened. So yeah, I guess stalker isn't quite the word. She would actively find me and confront me.
Okay.
And then after a while led to what the hell? And then I don't know, things went from there. I ended up having to challenge, I think, one of her brothers to ritualistic duel of some kind because whatever. He wasn't in on it. I was just like, you know what? This isn't too bad. Oh, you want to fight? Okay, buddy. Let's go. If I have to show another Klingon up, I'm getting really good at this. You sure you want to do this?
And then what did you guys do? The headbutt thing again, or something else?
No.
Okay.
No. This was a proper judicial duel. So
okay.
So I'm not any kind of master with the batleth, but
that's the
I'd
really
like to
long
think I didn't
curve
do
thing,
bad.
right?
Yeah. It's their weird kind of like half circle shaped sword.
Yeah. With like 3 handles.
Yeah. It's for boarding a ship. It's actually a really useful melee weapon as long as you understand how to wield it.
Okay.
And yeah, basically, the brother was, as they like to say, without honor.
Okay.
By the time I was done.
Okay.
Meaning I kicked his butt.
Ah. And that also helped woo the lady.
Yeah, that's about the size of it.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. There, I suppose in the warrior culture they would respect strength, and that's as strong as you can get, huh?
Like I said, game respects game.
It's so okay. So in terms of anime, I suppose that would be like something that would be like a cross between a tsundere and a yandere.
Yeah.
But without the killings, try to kill you thing. Try to kill you part. I don't know the proper term.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But
okay, fair.
Yeah, no.
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the trope is also authority equals ass kicking.
Fair. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of like authority figures that are like just a-holes.
Way too many, but we won't talk about the bureaucracy unless you want to.
Yeah, fuck pot. Oh my gosh! If anyone knows about useless people in power, it's me. But regardless, I see. Well, my second question was gonna ask my next question was gonna ask what were some problems you encountered marrying your wife, but that sounds about right. You having to encounter her a bunch and also fight her brother.
Yeah. And actually, once you get past that stage, the Klingons are actually a very, very, like I said, simple, hearty. They're very open people.
Okay.
Right. So in their minds and the way their society is, it doesn't matter what you happen to be or what you may have transitioned into. If you're their friend, you're their friend.
Okay.
That's the end of it. I'll let that sink in.
Okay, so they will do, if you're their friend, they'll always, of course, they'll try to aid you in certain situations, right? Like combat.
What I mean is, for example, on Deep Space Nine,
sure.
For the longest time, the Dax symbiote was a resident there. First with Curzon Dax, and then when he died, it was passed to Jadzia Dax, whom, after she ended up dying, unfortunately, it got passed to Ezri Dax.
Okay.
The thing with the Trill people is every time a symbiote joins a new host, they lose their family name and take on the name of the symbiote as their family name.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool, their own cultural thing. And so with that, the host gains all of the memories accumulated from the previous hosts through the symbiote. So it got to a point where when Jadzia had actually met a bunch of Curzon's old Klingon warrior buddies,
Yeah.
they had this whole beef with this albino Klingon who wronged them, and they vowed vengeance and they were going to eat his hearts. Like, it was totally metal and hardcore. Jadzia was the only individual there that was still in prime fighting age. All these other Klingons were like
Old. 200
and something and just all old, and sure, hardy warriors, but they all fell to the albino's blade, and only one of them managed to live long enough at the end to actually feast on this albino's heart and go to Stovokor having achieved their revenge.
Okay, that sounds kind of cool.
But when they met Jadzia, at first, because Dax took over the conversation with Jadzia's body, and it's like, "Hey, old timers, what's up?" Like, Curzon! It's like, "I'm Jadzia now." Jadzia! And they gave him a big welcoming hug and carried on like nothing happened. Right?
Yeah.
So that's more like what I was implying. But yes, Klingons are fierce allies if you can gain their respect.
Okay. That makes sense. Considering that their whole culture is based around how should I say this?
They're a warrior culture.
Yeah. Their warrior culture also like to. Okay. I do understand it, but the closest way I can describe this is similar to the people. Unfortunately, the only way I can describe this is similar to Mandalorian culture from Star Wars. If some people know about this, we're in the earlier
other franchise.
Yep. Rival franchise, but the way I see this is like when a leader when a person proves themselves to be a good heir. I'm using the air quotes, of course. Heir to the Mandalorian throne. They have to put on the helmet of Mandalore, and they have forsaken their actual names, and they become Mandalore. That's why That's why in the show Mandalorian, they are trying to imitate the old Mandalorians by not showing their face, because they are no longer, let's say, Din Djarin, or if I put on the helmet, I'm no longer KZ. I will become Mandalore. It's like that.
I've heard of that sect.
Yeah, it's a rather interesting thing that you abandon your identity. You essentially, well, at least in your case, they still keep their first names, but I mean, in that case, they keep their first names. But having to forsake your identity to become a leader is one very, very, how should I say, sacred. It's very sacred, but also very pressure. It will apply a lot of pressure on the person, I suppose.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Because you are
it's
not
a heavy burden.
Yeah, it's a heavy burden. You're not only carrying your reputation, you're carrying the reputation of the people who came before you.
Yep. And you know, the running gag actually when Klingons is and I hear people use this term in this reality too, is Klingon promotions. And that is quite literally, I've seen it happen. It's pretty cool. It's quite literally when the subordinate gets fed up with their boss's BS, so they murder him and take his place. Klingon promotion.
That's awesome.
Right?
So you using that logic then, let's say the CEO of a company who's been alive for like 300 years. That guy must be a really good fighter.
Good, and you know what? There's a whole bunch of like codes of honor and things they have to follow to even make that a legitimate cause. Because otherwise, if you just kill your boss just because you don't like him, I mean, technically that's proper Klingon politics anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Gowron, when he was chancellor, was really bad for the people with that I don't like or without honor kind of rhetoric, but which ironically is a lot of Klingon politics in general. But
Yeah.
they do have some, you know, baseline criteria you have that has to be met before you can totally formally challenge your superior to said duel for their job and their life. And hopefully, you know, they at least fight honorably, and if you manage to win, and
You live.
do them the honor of kill them, because that's just it. The thing with Klingons is they want to die fighting. That's the honorable way to go for them. That's how they get into Sto-vo-kor.
Yeah.
You'll lock them up in jail, or they do something cowardly and craven in the eyes of their adversaries, and that mark is what stays with them. That's when they go to the other place. That's when they go to Grethor.
Okay, have you watched the series Norsemen? I mean, The Norsemen.
No, I have not.
Okay, anyway, it's a show based around Vikings, right? But it's done as a comedy. It's really stupid, but really funny also. Anyway, there's this one scene that did kind of stick to me, and that was when a Viking dies, their bodies will go to Valhalla, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this group, the old men of the village are too old to go raiding with their kids, and they're too old to go raiding their kids, but they want to die fighting. So,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
it sounds about it's really really dumb, but these old guys just they were to the point they want to die fighting just so that they will go to Valhalla, that they just started like trying to pick a fight with as many people as they can. But then people said, no, you're too old, I do not want to fight you, I don't want to be responsible for killing an old man, because it's like a disrespectful thing. And then some guy said that, okay, if you're not gonna die fighting, maybe it's also responsible to jump off this bridge because you'll spare your family expenses. It's still dumb, but it's
Oh my
really
God.
dumb. But it's
Oh
also
dear.
it's funny. Well, in the end, they ended up getting their wish because the person in charge ended up becoming a jerk, and they all banded together to be the front warriors to put down this guy.
Oh dear.
But you have
That
yeah
sounds silly.
you have to respect the fact though that in, let's say, Spartan culture, that's the thing that's the thing I really admire, is that in Spartan culture on Terra, Spartans don't act. Our Spartans are the few people of their time that respected their elders so much.
Yeah, that's true. Now that I think about it, because I mean, with a few, you know, key differences actually round about now
Yeah.
in this universe's time frame, my Earth's history is very similar.
Yeah. To inform the members and the people who are watching, in Spartan culture, they respected the heck out of their elders, because in a strange way, it was just by coincidence, just realizing it, they respected their elders in a way that people respect old men in anime. In that the fact that
they got to live that long.
exactly, there's a reason why they lived that long, because they were good fighters. There's this famous story I heard that during the really early Olympics, like it's just Greeks,
Mhm.
that when the old man was walking, finding a seat to sit in. He wanted to sit with the Athenians. The Athenians said no. Get away from us, old man. He went to Thebes. They said no. Get away from us, old man. He went to the Macedonians. Get away from us. No. So he went to the Spartans. Then the people were like, why would he try to go to the Spartans? Those guys will kill him. Every single man stood up and offered his seat. Yeah.
Yep.
I really love that story. And as he said,
Yeah.
only in Sparta does it pay to grow old.
Yeah, but first you actually, have to survive the whatchamacallit, the choosing process basically after you're born.
What's the choosing process? Oh, right.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
that.
right. Because if the baby didn't look like they were, more or less in perfect physical condition,
Yeah,
wee off the cliff. And well,
baby did.
that was one of their weird barbaric practices, but whatever.
I actually heard that was a myth because there aren't any archaeological evidences.
Fines.
But
Yeah.
that is also true because they didn't throw it off a cliff. They just left the baby like somewhere on the like nearby hill. Funny enough, supposedly it's still unclear if it's actually true. There were some stories that what the parents did was when their children were like chosen to not be kept in Spartan life, the nearby villages might actually like come to take the children.
Take them in,
Supposedly, but that's just being very optimistic because this happened a lot.
Yeah, that would have been a very kind way
Yep.
to hopefully discover and remember that.
And that's just like the
And,
most optimistic way of remembering like these cultures of the past. But still, it is rather interesting like how people have viewed the different hierarchies in like social life in that kind of way.
Yep, absolutely.
And again,
I'm sure I can. Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say that's exactly what that was their downfall. They didn't create enough Spartans.
Yeah, that and, at the Battle of Thermopylae, they were stabbed in the back.
Also that, yeah. But yeah, actually speaking of the historical civilizations, I want to ask for the next question is, considering that you have traveled forward in time, does that mean that is that the only time you got to travel, or could you also travel back?
I haven't done it too many times myself, but yes, I have gone back in time.
Okay.
But generally the standard rule, like unless you're the captain of the Enterprise, it seems, because those guys, because they're captains of the flagship, I don't know what it is, especially with the Enterprise, they just do weird stuff and get caught in really ridiculous situations. Like, I remember talking to, because I ended up going back and forth a few times, right? And I remember using some clever disguise. I've actually met James Kirk after I've been sent forward through time, not when I knew him as a brat. Yeah, he ended up dealing with this race called Excalbians, and they actually brought Abe Lincoln as a facsimile to talk to them on some stupid trial, of all things. Yeah, but we'll just leave it at that. There's also a I've gone back a few times for other random stuff, but 9 times out of 10, when it comes to the temporal prime directive, which actually didn't get enforced until the year 28 something.
Okay.
They brought me there because of stuff involving this war with this really, really other nightmarish people known as the Iconians. That was a weird resolution. But yeah, so I got to see the writing of the temporal prime directive, which was a huge thing way in the future.
Like just like
Basically,
what you should do, what you should do and not do during time stuff, huh?
during, yeah, time stuff, because there was this period where there was this whole temporal Cold War happening because one or two races were very, very unhappy with basically the butterfly effect, because
Yeah.
it is a real problematic thing. So the basic rules of the temporal prime directive is if you go back, you are not allowed to interact with anything of that time. Is the bottom line. Otherwise, the the Starfleet of that era will basically come and hunt you down and have to fix the timeline. And they've got technology to actually detect the ridiculous technobabble sci-fi quantum signatures when those weird branchings occur. It gets even weirder because apparently there's this whole concept of a prime timeline as well.
Yeah, like the original time where where all things started and then started branching off when people just started screwing with stuff, I'm assuming.
Not necessarily the original timeline, but the prime ideal one.
Ah. Okay.
Right? Where, yes, sometimes bad things do happen, but they need to happen so that other things that happen later that are good can happen. It's,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
I don't like dealing with time travel because it just gets way too overly complicated, and somebody always screws things up irreparably.
I think that's also the reason why if anyone knows Rick and Morty, like as we discussed earlier,
Yeah.
they don't want to deal with time stuff.
Rick has an aversion to time stuff for a reason.
Yeah, I can see why. It is problematic.
Those jerks Corvo and Terry, though, not at all.
It's like a weird paradox. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to the next question, which is, you're an officer, right? Are you considered a captain?
Yeah, let me turn here. I got 4 pips on my neck. I am, based on the fact that Starfleet uses traditional U.S. naval ranks.
Okay,
yes,
that's good.
I am a naval captain in a space navy.
Okay, that makes sense. Anyway, the second part of that question was, seeing as how you're an officer, this means that you've had plenty of time learning tactics and combat on the battlefield, right? Has this helped you when dealing or working against or with the Klingons, or did their tactics and culture clash with the stuff you were taught?
Well, that's a good 2-part question. Part of it, the first part to that, with the whole tactics with and against the Klingons, I was very much a product of my time. So I learned very much to think like a Klingon, how a Klingon would fight. And as soon as those jerks got cloaking technology, it changed the game again.
Okay.
So, yeah, because for whatever reason, the Romulans decided to stick their noses in, and through some non-aggression pact, from my understanding, because the Romulans were smart. The Romulans gave the Klingons cloaking technology. And then those jerks decided, oh, we can be cunning predators this way instead of just warriors. And so we had signed a bunch of different armistice agreements with the Romulans that we would not actively develop, research, and use cloaking technology. So on that front, technically, we are putting ourselves at a disadvantage. But again, that's just to try and de-escalate an already highly escalated situation because diplomacy is supposed to rule the day.
Yeah.
That being said, fighting against the Klingons, yeah, as long as you're smart enough to know that the way they operate is they are pack hunters.
Mhm.
If you can understand how they want to go about and try and take you out, you can find a way to work around that. Conversely, if you understand that when you're working with them, it becomes a lot easier to coordinate attacks.
Okay.
But when you're
what do you
dealing
mean
with,
by like pack hunters earlier?
okay, so we humans, we more or less, this has been proven scientifically at this point. We evolved from lower primates.
Sure.
Okay. Klingons evolved from a predator species on their planet.
Okay.
And because of that, whereas, we humans, because of that early primate brain parts in the back of our head, the fight or flight used to just be flight,
Yeah.
right? And only through becoming what we are, right, we ended up going, hey, wait a minute, we're predators too. That took a while to develop, obviously. But with them, they were let's kill and eat stuff 24/7. And so their evolution made it so that for whatever reason, not just because they were, a warrior race, they kept that aggression. And so, right, they found in a lot of cases it works better instead of being a lone hunter to attack in a group. Everybody wins that way,
Okay.
except the target.
Yeah. I
Bully
can see
tactics,
why.
man, they work. They work.
Okay.
And like, yeah, you get the stories of the one-offs who, go and storm the castle alone, prove their machismo, but
They die.
the commonality is pack hunters, and as long as you're conscious of that, they can be easy to figure out until they start employing some actual higher thinking into their strategies.
Okay.
But that's just the Klingons.
Yeah.
The Romulans, they try and play this cloak and dagger game, and I basically, from fighting the Klingons so long, it's basically like, look, you come out of hiding or I'm carpet bombing space. that usually gets, yeah, that usually gets a few weird looks. And then I end up hearing from engineering to stop wasting all my torpedoes.
I'm essentially carpet bombing space. I also want that on the shirt. How do you carpet bomb space though? Do you just like cluster bomb?
If you've ever seen me in my ship, the Sword of Damocles, you'll understand how I carpet bomb space.
Fair enough.
Nothing is safe when I go to town and have the crew do the things with the ship that it's made for.
Okay. okay, that makes sense. So I'm assuming that you're not on like an explorer ship, you're on a full-on warship.
Well, I mean, with the Federation, right? Most of the vessels can do at least all the jobs to some degree. But yes,
sure.
There are many that are specialized in, doing support ops. There are pure science vessels. And technically, my background isn't this command red. I mean, that's something I grew into through my career. I'm actually a science officer by trade, of all things. And So space magic is the silliest way I can describe it simply. And then you have, yes, the actual built for combat escorts, destroyers, battleships, dreadnoughts, and the Sword of Damocles happens to be a dreadnought.
That's a cool ass
And
name,
I
by the
haven't-
way. And I already know the history of Damocles, considering that he's meant to be like an Avenger, I suppose, who avenges like the death
yeah.
of comrades.
Yep. I figured I got to pick the name for my ship, and because she's
that's a
a
cool
bit
ass
of a
name.
prototype, she's got the NX registry number 2. Life is good.
Hell yeah!
And
Oh yeah!
And she's big. At least as far as Federation vessels go, she's big.
Fair enough. Okay, moving on to the next question, which is, after spending time with Klingons and having a family of ones, did you feel like you understand the rivalry between the Klingons and the Federation better? And how has it like changed your perspective of their culture now that you're married to one?
Well, younger me would have not had the perspective I have today, especially considering they were my bitter enemy. I lost a lot of friends to them, and the scar on my face actually comes from some order who managed to get a lucky nick on me. I'm lucky I didn't lose the eye. Over time, especially after I was catapulted into the future, and I got to actually learn their culture a lot more, I found there was a lot of things I actually liked about them. And the hardest part of any of this is getting over that hatred that you develop for somebody who's been your enemy that you've been fighting for so long. And, you know, eventually one thing led to another, and I was able to get past that. It was long, it was difficult. I still don't know how I managed to actually get to the point where I have a Klingon wife and our hybrid son is already trying to challenge me to headbutt contests. His mother is at least accepting that or actually encouraging me, I should say, to teach him how to do Batleth kata, which is interesting. Because I'm no expert in martial arts with Batleth. I only know a little bit of Klingon martial arts, but she's pushing me to learn them.
Well, I suppose while the father teaches the son, he also learns himself, right? It's that
of course.
It's that one old saying, like, nothing is a better teacher than teaching a subject.
Yeah, well, I've also had to tell her we're not going to do the pain stick thing. Because Klingons, they have this ritual with pain sticks.
What is the pain?
Which are basically taser rods. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Not a whole lot, because I've met Worf in my time in service, and
sure.
like, he's, again, Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine is the most awesome hub to meet everybody.
Okay.
And like, he mentioned it a few times, which, like, yes, I need to learn about this stuff, and probably actually go visit Kronos a bit more often on shore leave, take family vacation, what have you. I know the wife likes to see her family once in a while.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, no, there it was both a disciplinary thing and, for whatever reason, a character development thing for Klingon culture. I forget exactly the details, but yeah, for whatever reason, Worf did something a while back that apparently, pardon me, I'm sorry, apparently caused dishonor to him and his house, and his way of going through with that and atoning was basically walking this pain stick gauntlet. And I kid you not, about 20-30 Klingons all lined up on either side of him, and he had to walk through this gauntlet and get poked in the armpits by each set of them.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Oh, it looked terrible. Ugh. But after he went through that, apparently he was good in Klingon society again for a while. So,
okay, so they essentially cattle prodded him.
They did cattle prod the crap out of him.
No, it was a line of guys, and each one gets at least one token with a cattle prod.
No, literally, that's what it was. It was ritualistic cattle prodding. I'm not making this up.
I have a feeling that's like someone's kink out there, man.
It probably is.
Oh, that would get a lot more like very kinky people in the Star Trek. But anyway, but yeah, that is a really interesting way of like redeeming yourself, I suppose.
Well, I mean, in the days of old, like Earth's militaries, I know there was a common practice when one of the enlisted mooks managed to screw up super bad.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the squad would find a way to punish them outside of working hours, and then they would just, hopefully their attitude would change. That clearly has been outlawed since before I was even around.
Like, what kind of things we talking about?
I know those
here?
practices. We're talking. If I'm to believe some of the entries from my ancestors, because my ancestors served in militaries on Earth as well.
Okay.
One of the common practices was putting a bar of soap in a wool sock.
Ah. Okay. I see where it's going next.
Or meeting somebody by surprise with a shovel.
Yeah, this is some Full Metal Jacket type shit, huh?
Yes, actual Full Metal Jacket stuff.
Okay, yeah. I see.
Which is why I'm pretty sure it was outlawed after a while.
Okay, that's probably a good thing, because we've seen the movie. Everyone knows what happens next. But yeah, I suppose that makes sense. That makes sense why it's more of people should do things more akin to camaraderie, right? I suppose.
Yeah.
Like actually help each other and not just doing things with negative through punishments, because to be honest, negative punishments will just make people go crazy.
Negative reinforcement
Yep.
has short-term gains but long-term problems.
Yeah. It's not good for anybody. Well, anyway, moving on to the next question.
Shoot.
Seeing as how you have a Klingon son, do you have an equivalent to playing catch? Or do you just play catch, of course?
Well, I mean, we go to the holodeck. We play catch. Generally, there's a bunch of other fun things we end up doing. Somehow he managed to find what is essentially an ancient version in our time, but you guys call it craft.
Sorry?
So half the time I'm wandering around in Minecraft with him in the holodeck, and I'm having to fight off zombies while he's digging looking for diamonds. It's weird. Especially when the resolution is so terrible. Because here you are, high-res flesh and blood person walking around and seeing these giant voxel-shaped people.
That's kind of nice though. That's how you spend time with your son, with your Klingon son, of course.
Yeah, I mean, when his mom joins in, it's no longer Minecraft. It's more like, oh, combat simulators. So, like 7 Days to Die, because she seems to think that one's pretty cool. Apparently, because she's spoken to Worf at one point or another too. Apparently, Super Mario Brothers is apparently ultra violent, and
What?
you know, because stomping on mushroom dudes is totally awesome, and that's their thing.
Okay.
Apparently, it's a Warriors game. So, yeah, she's taken a Batleth into the holodeck and playing Super Mario Brothers by hacking and slashing all the Goombas and the Koopas.
That is that's awesome, actually.
Yeah. Struck me as a bit weird. And then you've got me when I'm, you know, spending too much time on my own. I'll go in and I'll fire up my own version of the combat simulator. And the wife tends to actually like to participate in our version of Blade and Sorcery.
Ah, yes, I've seen some of the videos.
Yeah. It gets really funny when I bring sci-fi weapons from yet another universe,
To
from
medieval
an
one.
alternate timeline, into that sort of thing, and here I am using the Gundam's beam rifle, going pew pew, suckers, which is weird because that thing should be about roughly 12 times the size it is if it's going to fit in my hand.
To be fair, I've seen some people add miniguns to your version of the holodeck.
Yeah,
that's probably like on the lesser end.
yeah. I mean, I tend not to modify it too much, other than, you know, adding more historically accurate weapons. But, you know, the odd anime sword, or I mean, it's Gundam. That's my other pastime.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Moving on to the next question is there an issue between your family and crew being so intertwined? Or do you not take your family on you with your adventures? Are they probably just staying in a singular timeline that you just keep going back to?
Basically, my family lives on the ship with me.
Okay.
And then, I mean, I'm the boss, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get my orders from Admiralty and we do our stuff, but my wife is content being something of a homemaker and running other programs on the ship, because while she is a Klingon warrior, she is not a Starfleet officer and prefers to remain that way. So, rather, not Starfleet personnel, I should say.
Okay.
So she runs a lot of the extracurricular activities on the ship, especially the interesting cultural stuff. But I don't care how you try and cut it or whatever, I will not eat gawked.
What's gawked?
Klingon worms served cold while still alive and wiggling.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. You asked.
Fair, that's fair. I did ask. I actually have seen something very similar to that when I was like traveling with my family. We discovered this place where they serve this thing called woodworms. It's essentially they go the way I saw it, because I actually had to look this up after the fact, that they cut open swamp trees, and the part where they cut open has holes in them that they then, I don't know how they extract it, I just know they do extract it. They extract the holes. Inside those holes there are worms, like swamp worms. They pull that out and they just eat it like that. They usually add vinegar, but they don't even bother on doing anything else with it.
Cool. Yeah, yuck.
It is
Not my cup of tea.
disgusting. It's
Bugs
not
are
not my cup of tea
complimenting.
either. Then again, I did end up like eating silkworm at one point.
Eating what? Sorry?
Silkworm.
Okay.
It's not as bad as you think. It tastes exactly like corn.
Yeah, if you're no. Bugs are 100% off the menu as far as I'm concerned.
The but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it tasted weird. It tasted strange, but it was essentially just it was pretty much just corn. But yeah, just seeing how your family just has some cultural difference. Wait, does your kid eat that? The thing you said earlier.
I mean, if his mother makes it, he'll eat it. But yeah, no, he's developing a good understanding of both cultures he comes from. So
it's really good. Like being raising your son to be multicultural is of course the best way to deal with it, because there has been issues. I've seen plenty of issues wherein half races where people
they tend to not fit in either world very well.
Yeah, exactly. I somewhat have that kind of issue, but not as much as it used to be. Anyway, yeah, that's really great that your family's just doing well. How about the crew? I'm assuming they also have had a similar history to you, or are they just like just higher temporal help essentially?
In essence, a lot of them did end up making that weird jump to the 25th century with me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I took command of the Sword of Damocles, like I got a huge influx of other crew, because like I was operating on a smaller Constitution class when I got sent into the future, and when I got sorted out and my temporal agency contacts bothered to fix my identity so that I would blend in better.
Sure.
They didn't just fix mine, they fixed most of my crews too.
Okay.
And just things happened. I ended up going through the ranks fairly quickly afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I was still only a lieutenant at the time when that happened.
Ah,
I was on my way
okay.
up and up. And and again, things happened, and eventually I got my hands on a brand new ship that had been recently commissioned. So I got to name her, which was awesome, and yeah, so now I have a vessel that can hold about 1,200 personnel, and she's big.
It sounds like it, yeah.
And yeah, and of all things, my chief medical officer is a cat dude.
What? Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. I what's his name again? Sorry,
Dr. Messias.
There we go. Yeah, Dr. Messias.
Yeah, he's an interesting character.
He does sound really interesting. I should probably get him on the show someday. But yeah, the having some people. Wait, you were saying your next the person the android. What's her name?
Oh, we're bringing her up. Yes. Through one of my weird temporal agent things where I did have to go back in time and I actually had to fix timeline bits.
Yeah.
I ended up running into another Uber's shell named Vesa.
Yes.
And this particular unit, this was actually only like her seventh shell that had been created, because I don't want to get into too many details because it's not my place to talk about
That's
it.
cool.
But basically, for whatever reason, the Borg had gone back in time too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was there to actually stop the Borg from basically acquiring this particular VESA unit to just, catapult their assimilation of Earth and our society before it could even, become spacefaring.
Yeah.
And through a bunch of sci-fi action story events, I was able to rescue that iteration of VESA. I had to disconnect her from her AI network so that she could not be assimilated and assimilate the entire VESA AI network, because everything as we know it today would be Borg if I did that. Or if I didn't do that, rather. And after we purged the Borg nanites and, through some coping and just... I suppose it's hard to explain how you give therapy to a synth or an android, but helping them realize that they are disconnected and severed from being the one that is many at this point to just being themselves, and having to take them to the future where they're safe and can actually explore being an individual. That was a whole thing. And so now she sits on my bridge and occasionally likes to go and bring the violence when we have away team missions that go south.
Okay, so what do they serve? What does she serve as on the normally, like on the ship, like just for security?
Forget what I have her tasked as. I remember. She is either tactical or, actually, honestly, now that I think about it, I have her as set as the intelligence officer. So she's, because of her background, like, she's not allowed to interface and take over with other networks in our timeline, but she's got enough skills and can interact with all the computer networks on the ship, which is kind of scary because we're talking 21st century technology that somehow got rather advanced for what it was, to interacting with quantum computers of the 25th century and actually getting results.
Sounds about right.
So yeah, that's been fun. It's almost been like having a second kid, because much like Captain Picard's experience with Commander Data on his Enterprise, teaching certain aspects to this VESA iteration has been interesting. And a lot of fun, except when, she pushes a random button and accidentally causes damage to the ship. That's something we still have to talk about at another time. But, yeah.
Okay.
That was early into her integration into her new life.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I can see why that would be an issue. Of course, it's nice to know that you have like a colorful cast of characters essentially on your ship.
They can be. Sometimes I wish they would just do their jobs like they're supposed to.
Okay. Well, at least you have crew members who helps you through your adventures. So let's go on to the next question, of course. We're already on the home stretch now, so next is, how would you describe your daily life your daily life normally?
Well, aside from, the glamour shots where it gets in the captain's chair and just say, helm, take us out.
Sure.
Until things get like ridiculous or exciting or or just, you know, the bad guy of the week shows up and threatens something, and I'm forced to go intervene. You know, it's standard day-to-day shipboard activity. So, you know, signing a lot of paperwork, making sure the ship's running smoothly, addressing crew complaints about anything from sonic showers malfunctioning um, to my wife making a big stink about things that really are not as high a priority as she may think they are.
What are we talking about here?
Extracurricular activities, after all.
Ah.
Because you know what? I'll be honest. As much as I like to make sure the holodecks are up and running, and they do need to be up and running at least a good chunk of the time, because
Someone's
people
using
need
them.
sanity. Yeah, people need a way to retain their sanity when you're stuck in a pressurized tin can in a vacuum
Fair.
for months to years on end, depending on how long you get to serve aboard my ship. You know, yes, the entertainment things still need to exist and function. But that's not necessarily as important as, you know, the life support systems, the warp core, making sure my tactical and security staff know their drills and know how to, you know, act in case we get boarded. The science and engineering teams being able to maintain the warp core, make sure, you know, that
everything's good.
Everything runs. And you know what? If they have, you know, reasonable proposals for science projects and stuff, like 9 times out of 10, as long as it's not going to threaten to blow up the ship, I'm usually all for it.
Yeah, that's great.
Because that's the thing you want to do as a leader, right?
Yeah.
You want to promote the growth and welfare of your people.
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't just make them feel good, it makes you look good too.
Definitely. And then, of course, it would help prevent mutinies.
Generally
speaking, of course. Did you have to deal with any kind of mutinies?
Fortunately, I have not had to deal with any kind of mutinies, unless you count Vesa just
doing stuff,
accidentally trying to take over the ship by...
Okay, accidentally. I would have to bring this up with her when she does come on the show, but yeah.
No, you gotta remember though, right? The Vesa unit I have isn't connected to the network anymore, so she would not have that kind of presence of mind to know.
Fair enough. Okay, but yeah, it's still great that everything, well, you're running things as smoothly as you can and to the full extent of your abilities on the ship. So
yeah,
sector, whatever you're on control right now, probably bombing someone else.
my area of responsibility, which seems to be wherever the Admiralty needs to have something dealt with.
Hey. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is: are you independent now, or are you still taking like orders from high command as you're traveling through space-time? Because at the moment I am unsure who is your superior officer. Would it be the timeline you're currently in, or would it be like the timeline that you would be in the next one when you time travel?
Okay. So in terms of things like that, when I'm back in my own time,
sure,
I absolutely 100% am under Starfleet Command's
definitely
umbrella. But when my handlers from the other agencies bother to tap me on the shoulder, most of the time that's off the books work. So I answer to them, but I have to find a pretty good excuse for the Admiralty to let me go. Usually I just have to say I've been tapped by these guys, and
They
they're
understand.
pretty understanding at this point. But yeah.
Would there
That-
be,
that-
have you encountered some kind of conflict between what what your handlers would say versus what your commander would say?
In short, I use a lot of these conflicts when it comes to dealing with Section 31. And yeah, generally, because of my own understanding of my personality, I'll be straight up. I might act like a nice guy.
Yeah.
I am not when deep down. So generally, I'll probably take care of the Section 31 job without hesitation,
Okay, fair enough.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just doing what you can to fulfill your duties to the best of your ability, essentially, right?
Now, that and, threats to the Federation must be eliminated.
Oh yeah, definitely. That always comes first, I suppose.
That's literally Section 31's whole mission.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Well, it's good to know that at least you have that answered. So maybe if somebody like wants you to do a temporal delivery mission versus slaying this big eldritch being, you know what's more important.
Actually, the irony is that particular scenario can probably do both. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's all relative.
That is
If
true.
you're going
That
back
is
in
very
time,
true.
Right? You can do the temporal delivery first, and then come
And-
back, and then take out the big bad.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. That does make sense because you get to you're never late in terms of temporal stuff.
Right? You're always right on time.
That's interesting. Just like like you can travel throughout the time and cosmos and try to predict things, but you don't have to. You could just like go forward and then go back again. You don't have to predict anything.
Well, actually, no. You're not supposed to do that. That actually violates.
Oh yeah,
temporal
definitely. Yeah,
primary
yeah. But
because
suppose
you're
theoretically
gaming
you
the
could.
system. Theoretically, absolutely.
Okay, fair
But
enough.
if we don't play by certain rules, then you get into all sorts of paradoxes, and then you can crash reality in on itself. And
Yeah,
it's just not pretty.
fair enough.
You mind if I answer one of the questions from chat there?
We'll be answering all chat questions at the end.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. This is a bit of a heavy one, so you can choose to answer it or not. And
Okay, shoot.
that is, during your travels across the timelines, you probably lost some friends along the way, especially with what you said earlier with the war against the Klingons.
Yeah.
Would you like to share some of their stories?
That's a tough one.
You don't have to answer, of course, if it makes you too uncomfortable.
I'm gonna have to pass on that one if I'm being honest, because that
Okay.
is
That's fair.
those are things that I'm not 100% prepared to deal with again right at this second.
Okay, it's fine. I completely understand there. There's just been a lot of things that has happened, especially to those kinds of to your line of work specifically.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the last question. Being able to essentially time travel, what have you done that, let's say, somebody from your universe, or at least that universe that you travel to, might have seen? Something like a bit of your work that you can that you can disclose.
Well, I mean, I decided send broadcasts of my misadventures in the holodeck back to this platform you people of this timeline call YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been fun. In terms of lasting things I've done, most of them probably wouldn't have heard of, because the stuff I do, it only appears on the news or as a lasting, historical event if I done goofed.
Okay, that's fair. That's really fair.
So hopefully, no, you probably haven't heard of much of what I've done.
Hopefully. Actually, have you heard of this manga from Terra called The Chainsaw Man?
I have not.
Okay. Anyway, I don't actually fully understand the story right now, but there was this person who has... I actually have to I had to do more research on this because I don't fully understand it. But anyway, it's like from an alternate universe, right? This person has the ability to, not necessarily travel. He can travel through time and has changed aspects of the timelines.
Oh, he's been a bad boy.
Yes, but the way he has, because he is just ultimate, he's the most ultimate power. He has done some certain things that I find really, really interesting, just as a concept, because what he has done is that he not only eliminates words, he eliminates the whole concept of those words.
Oh, so he goes on an ontological spree. Okay.
Yes, essentially. So when the person was explaining it, they read that this person went back in time. They eliminated the name Adolf Hitler. They eliminated the whole concept of Nazis. They eliminated the whole concept of nuclear bombs attacking Japan. They eliminated the whole attack from World War II, Pearl Harbor. They didn't eliminate World War II, just the attack. The timeline went on differently, but just all of those things. Those concepts make sense in that Terran reality, right? But then they went on to say that they also eliminated the rise of the Third Mongolian Empire. They eliminated the meteor attack that destroyed Los Angeles. They eliminated... He just started coming up with concepts, and in my head I'm like, this universe doesn't have the concept. The universe I'm on doesn't have this concept. It's like...
Just hearing all of that, any one of those things would just change that timeline forever, and then continue changing them, right? Like removing... the only thing that I would see that would still happen is, in the case of dude going back in time and just wiping Hitler from history, we're looking at this realistically. That would not have been enough.
Yeah, definitely.
You would have to go back and basically have Austria and Serbia fix things on a completely different level, so that not only would World War II never happen, World War I would have to never happen.
Yeah, because that was like a domino kind of effect wherein, because of the things that happened between those two countries, it just dominoed effect to the whole World War II thing and rise of Nazis.
And then afterwards, well, not even that. What happened was afterwards, after, Germany and Austria lost World War I and the Treaty of Versailles was written up, basically the map of Europe got rearranged so much in the span of 3 years, it wasn't even funny. And the way they decided to go about redrawing the map and causing things to happen the way they did caused so much unrest that it eventually led to the events that started Hitler's rise to power, and of course, him doing things that led to World War II.
Yeah, I see what you mean. That
There was so much economic and sociological upheaval that it just there was no way that things were going to end well, but they couldn't see it back then, which is why it needs to be left alone. Because as horrible as it is, we would not be where we are today.
Yeah, definitely.
That did not happen.
That actually did. I could be wrong though, but the way that it was shown is that that was supposedly using air quotes, the modern day Japan, like right now. I mean, like right now in Terran universe, anyway. But their technology was regressed. It's not the same type of tech they have right now. I mean, they have right now in this universe. It's actually like something from the 1980s. I have to confirm this, but that's what I saw. It's like these effects did ripple throughout time. But
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's just rather interesting how these technologies, how this kind of like temporal fuckery essentially would like butterfly effect throughout the universe, throughout their universe, and just change everything, because you cannot simply change one bad thing and hopefully the modern day you have would still stay the same. That's not how it works.
No, because honestly, if you just took out Hitler, you know what would have happened? We would have been dealing with probably Russia taking over most of Europe, and then it would just be Red Europe.
Yeah.
That would be a different and almost bigger problem.
Yeah. So, as much as we fucking hate Hitler, everyone hates Hitler, he was probably the better option.
I don't know if I'd say that, but...
There's actually, of course, better ways to we can solve this, yes, but yeah.
Yeah.
Choosing between him and the Reds, yeah.
Yeah, no.
I suppose anyway, that's something for like the historians to argue over, huh?
I've actually seen a few YouTube channels where historians contemplate the potential effects of what if XYZ happened?
Yeah.
Or what if this didn't happen? And some of those are actually very interesting.
Yeah. But still, the idea of what the supposed idea of what Chainsaw Man thought of, wherein... But here's the thing, Chainsaw Man didn't only kill Hitler or the Nazis, he did a bunch of things alongside that.
Right.
So it's like, just thinking about that, all of those have ripples of like the butterfly effect that could destabilize or just do something that would lead to something that might be much worse or much better depending who you're talking to.
Definitely weirder.
Yeah, a lot stranger. I have seen like I have seen this concept of a universe that of a Terran world that has just quite nearly suffocated, like due to their greenhouse gases and pollutions, right? So
that almost was my past as well.
Ah, interesting. But the way that they dealt with it is that they decided to some scientists developed this thing that would help trees and plants proliferate, right? The thing is that this backfired and ended up causing plants to proliferate so much that the humans almost, I'm using the word almost regressed to like a tribal system, because there are some places that did regress to a tribal system because their technologies were utterly destroyed, and generations and generations later on just had to like learn how to restore technology back into what it is, but it still couldn't become the same. So they ended up living in a cleaner world, air quotes cleaner, but in a world that is much different from what would have been if they just fixed their crap earlier.
Absolutely. The positive note there is they managed to not completely destroy their atmosphere.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory for the scientists of that reality.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished,
But
but at what cost?
but what cost? A lot of their cities are basically just really giant tribes now, and they just worship like what kind of tech they find that does still work. I'm using air quotes, that does still work, and something about how like there are still some traces of some governments whose hidden bunkers, because of course the hidden bunkers.
Yep. And it sounds like a green version of Fallout.
It basically is, honestly.
Wow. That'd be cool, actually.
Yeah, I would actually like to see that now. It's like a merge between Fallout and what's that one? What's that one that came out recently? The one where the lady fights robots with bow and arrow.
Oh, Horizon
Yeah,
Zero Dawn.
yep,
or
bingo.
whatever?
Yeah, it's like a mix between Horizon Zero Dawn and Fallout. Thinking about it now, that's also kind of like a mix between that and also Avatar, the one with the blue people.
Fun.
But yeah, anyway, that's just what happens when you try fucking up with like timelines. Do something, it's gonna end up with something like getting worse, much worse.
So, remember, kids, temporal mechanics are not to be played with.
Okay, I think that's the best way to end this show. Would you agree?
Sure, sounds good. It was fun being on here.
You enjoyed your time on Burning Questions?
They were certainly burning.
Hell yeah. Okay, so now that we're done with these burning questions, let's go to the chat to see what kind of burning questions did they come up with. Here earlier, Rukzaki said,
yep.
Murdock, isn't that a word short for a doctor that murders people, right?
Oh, making fun of my name. I mean, if you venture into places like VTuber Senpai's Discord, somebody has definitely implied that my name should be Murder Doc, but
okay.
No. Technically, no.
Okay, fair enough. Technically, no. Okay, I know you answered this one earlier, but Starlight asks, you wouldn't download the pizza, would you?
And, I mean, I have replicator technology on my ship. It's like asking me if I wouldn't download a glass of water.
Fair enough. Although, okay, out of comments, what would be if you if you, well, I suppose you already have this, but what was the one thing that you probably replicate the most? Food item, of course. We're talking food items here.
Food items, probably, you know, I'm not just, you know, white and anime looking. I'm
sure
pretty bland when it comes to food too, so good old steak meal generally.
Nice.
Which at least the missus can appreciate, because it implies that something had to die to be on the table. But the thing with
that is
replicators
metal.
no, but the thing with replicators, right, is
they
just replicate the item, so
it doesn't actually kill something. Yeah,
no harm to any living creatures. So every time we go to Earth and I take her on shore leave on Earth and we have an actual baseball steak, she grows a little bit more appreciative, because yes, it means something
did
died
have to die.
so she can eat.
Holy crap, that is metal though. Something had to die.
Klingons are metal.
Okay, this
are metal.
Out of context, but I did recall you do listen to this other podcast called Trash Days Podcast, and at one point they talked about like killing things to eat and how it differs from culture. But then somebody, as a joke, someone at some point said that food tastes better knowing that something had to die.
If you ask any hunter from this reality we're broadcasting to now, they will tell you the meat tastes better when it was their prey.
Yeah. I've heard
That
I've
they
heard that
fought,
one a few
right?
times.
Right?
Oh, I love that.
It's
I love that.
it's ridiculous, but it kind of holds up at the same time. It's weird.
Yeah, definitely. It makes sense because you had to work for it. I suppose it's like that. I suppose it's like that same concept about like having like buying a table online versus making one yourself. The one you make yourself isn't gonna be as good, but it's gonna be like something that you want to use more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I suppose it still has the same mechanic. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. Let's see. All right. Mechanic Crew asked, why did they get the name Klingons, and are they clingy?
Well, I couldn't tell you why they got the name Klingon. That's just what they ended up deciding to call their species, because in their language it's pronounced Klingon with a T.
There's a T in there.
Yes, in okay, Klingon is very, very different. It's almost like, in terms of human languages, it's almost got a Slavic base to it.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so yeah, because like Kronos isn't spelt like its sound. It's spelt with a Q and a U. There's no R anywhere.
What?
Oh, yeah, I'm not making this up, man.
Okay, fair enough. There are words with weird ass spellings. Just look at the freaking word. Look at the word. The spelling for knife. There's a K in there.
But in our alphabet, like Klingon words in general are spelled really funky.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's see here. I already answered this. We're just doing an interview podcast. Oh yeah. Oh, the one that Ika Echo said earlier. Any tips for anyone interested in joining the Starfleet?
You want to join? All
I'm
you gotta
assuming she
do
wants
is
this.
apply.
Sorry?
Don't. I said all you gotta do is apply. You don't just be sure you don't try and lie on your application. And the recruiters are very good at going through certain tests to determine your character, and will find the things that you are not necessarily very strong in your character, and test that metal.
Okay.
Part of the recruiting phase. It's interesting.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I suppose just don't lie and try to be fit. I suppose.
Well, not just fit, but I mean, like, again, testing your character. The example that comes to mind is back in the 2360s when Dr. Beverly Crusher was ship's surgeon, chief medical officer on the Enterprise under Picard. Her son Wesley was interested in joining Starfleet. And so after he went through a battery of actual, like, written tests, the final one to get in and, like, go to Starfleet Academy, he was practiced live action case scenario, and he didn't know it was happening until it was over. And Wesley's biggest problem was he could not accept things that were out of his control. He had a bit of a Batman complex.
Okay, fair enough.
So after he accepted that there was no way he was going to be able to, in that particular scenario he went through, basically save this guy from being sucked out into space, essentially airlocked. And, like, it was for the greater good, so that the ship didn't, implode that he had to seal that room, and he passed. Only to find out, nobody was in any real danger, but it sure freaking felt like it at the time. But that was the thing they wanted to test, right? They wanted to see if he could make the sound reasonable decision. As hard as that kind of decision is, because playing with lives is never easy, right?
Yeah.
As hard as that kind of decision is he still able to make it under duress?
Definitely. I've heard like certain I don't think this is from your universe, but I have heard of like certain tests for like intelligence officers wherein they had to supposedly execute some a pet supposedly, right?
Oh, I've heard of this. That was either KSK or I want to say GS9. German special forces. They do that. They raise a pet chicken, and then at the end of their training, yes, a chicken, and then they basically have to kill the pet chicken.
I've heard one done with dogs.
I haven't heard about the one with dogs, but chickens. I want to say it's KSK.
Well, it is in KFC. Anyway.
Derp. Yeah, you set me up for that one.
Yeah. Okay, well, the next question is by Akari, where she says, how do food establishments stay in business considering that there are things can be replicated? I'm assuming this because there's no money, right?
Well, money's takes a very different form in my era.
Okay.
Okay, like, yes, money is not used as commonly anymore because, yeah, for the most part, we don't have need for money. But we do have a credit system, which does kind of act like it. Okay. And when we deal with this other species called the Ferengi, who resemble a spacefaring version of another sort of people that can be encountered on Earth. It's all about the money for them. And their form of currency is this stuff called gold pressed platinum, which is basically actual bullion of this material.
Okay.
And yeah, it's basically gold, but it's like
different.
Sci-fi gold.
It's gold but different.
Yes, it is gold, but different. I couldn't explain to you the molecular substructure and why it's gold pressed platinum, other than they press gold on top of it. But
okay, so how does this convert to the credits then?
I'm not a financial advisor. I couldn't even remotely begin to explain that.
Fair enough. Well, I suppose there aren't any more questions done here. Do you have any last things to say before we end this?
Thanks for having me on. Maybe we can arrange for Dr. Messias to show up, and I'm sure he has things to say.
Definitely. I'll definitely contact him about that in the near future. So, anyway, to everyone who's watching, this is Mr. Murdock. His links were sent earlier. We have his Twitter over here. I cannot resend this for some. There we go. Everyone check him out on Twitter, and from there you can look him up on YouTube and such. So I hope everyone here had such a great time, and I will see everyone next time. Goodbye, everyone.